Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio, where the past meets the future. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew. In here, the results are always positive. We explore the mysteries of the universe and of the Earth. Whether you are driving across the country tonight or listening on the web while you're working on your favorite project, you are about to learn more about who we are, why we are here, and what we may become than you thought possible. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. Keep your arms inside the vehicle, recline your chair, and look out the window as we launch X Squared Radio. Welcome, Earth Explorers, to X Squared Radio. We are so glad you are here. We're coming to you live from on the eastern side of the mountain where the sun has been shining today. My AccuWindow forecast today, beautiful sunshine. Welcome. The solar wind is up to 368.6 kilometers per second. Sunspot 1049 is quietly making its way across the sun, but poses no threat for solar flares. Solar cycle 24 is now stable, but the sunspots are not the type that solar scientists believe will deliver the kind of conflagration expected by films such as Knowing. Still, you might want to upgrade your brand of sunglasses, and you might want to pick out a nearby abandoned mine for retreat if one becomes imminent. We'll keep you posted, though. Don't worry about it. Double flybys this weekend from Space Shuttle Endeavour and the International Space Station, and now has its functioning observatory. Oh boy, wouldn't that be neat to stand out on that and watch the sun rise 12 times a day. Anyway, tonight Endeavour is going to be heading back to Earth in a rare after-dark landing at 10:16 Eastern Standard Time. So we might delay our break a little bit so you can go outside and look at it. If you're in the southern part of the United States, you might see it come in. It's going to come in from the south, so you might not be able to see it unless you catch a horizon view of it. There were a paltry 15 earthquakes in the past 24 hours, and none were over 5.0. The entire planet Earth seems to be at rest this night. This in the wake of every state in the nation, except Hawaii, having the presence of snow. Kind of interesting in the last few days. Some of you have been exposed to the anti-global warming propaganda lately. Reports of an exiled Al Gore and others who gained politically from the theory of climate change are greatly exaggerated, however. While we in the northern hemisphere have been covered in white, the southern hemisphere is suffering through record heat. Adding up all the temperatures, we see that we are not experiencing global cooling. Remember, there are other energies coming to the planets of our solar system right now. Don't throw away your food storage just yet. As spring approaches, millions more are out of work than ever before. Areas that were left all but untouched during the Depression of 1929 are suffering an almost irreversible loss of value. Unless the Departments of Energy, Agriculture, and Treasury do something meaningful soon to get capital into the hands of small businesses in these impoverished areas, we may risk third world states inside our own nation. I implore you to write your congressman and cry foul as the mega corporations like GM and Goldman Sachs drain our tax dollars into their cash drawers. We have often discussed the subject of UFOs on this program. We have also discussed the subject of contact with alien races on this planet, but we have never spoken to a journalist about the phenomenon. Tonight, we are going into the realm of journalism because perhaps we need some perspective with this. Character always plays a factor in movements, whether we're talking about a prophet or a messenger from beyond. Tonight's guest is a researcher and author who might help give us that perspective. Please welcome with me Nick Redfern. Welcome to the program, Nick.
Hey, Brooks, thanks for having me on.
Oh, this is really great. We had Nick scheduled, a couple of months back, and he had a toothache, I think it was, wasn't it? That was...
It was beyond a toothache. It turned into like a full-blown abscess. I look like I've been punched by Mike Tyson or something.
Oh, I'm holding my own jaw.
Right over Christmas as well.
Wow. Well, nothing seems to hunt you down and bother you like a toothache. It's just something you can't get rid of. Well, anyway, we're glad you're here. I have traveled a little bit, and I've been asked to attend a few conferences where UFOs and aliens were the main subject matter. And I think one thing is very true before we begin tonight. When the subject comes up, I'm often asked, do you believe in UFOs? And I have really found this curious, why people equate the phenomenon of UFOs and contact with aliens with belief. I mean, people don't ask me if I believe in chemistry. So how do you explain this kind of like hope for solid knowledge about the subject of UFOs?
Well, it's actually a very good question because, unfortunately, and I do say unfortunately, and I mean it, that belief systems do play a large role within the UFO subject. And my view, and I suppose this comes from more having a background in journalism, if people ask me if I believe in UFOs, it's not so much a belief, it's more an evaluation of how much evidence there is to support the idea that UFOs exist or don't exist. And my view is that having studied the subject for 20 years thereabouts, and having dug deeply into the way in which government agencies have looked at it and looking at witness testimony as well, collectively, I think there's sufficient evidence to suggest there's a real UFO phenomenon. So again, for me, there's no need to say I believe or don't believe. It's a matter of equating the evidence versus, the lack of evidence or otherwise.
Sure.
Sure. I'm convinced there's a genuine phenomenon, but unfortunately, regardless of whether or not, somebody concludes the phenomenon is real or not, belief systems still play a large role. It's like, well, why are the aliens coming here? Person number one will say, well, I believe they're here, they're friendly. Somebody else will say, I believe they're hostile. What they're basically saying is they don't really know the answer as to why the beings might be here. And so they've come up with a belief system that they've constructed to try and answer the questions that so far we don't have answers to. And unfortunately, that happens in a lot of areas of the unknown where people try and construct a framework without having the hard evidence. It doesn't mean something isn't going on, but it does mean that, we should be wary of trying to construct a framework when we don't have all the answers.
Well, most people don't have a good toolbox, and they don't certainly have journalistic skills or interviewing skills to be able to go out and try to find this evidence. How did you begin in the genre of becoming a UFO researcher?
Well, basically what happened, Brooks, is that my own father was in the British Royal Air Force. He worked on radar, and he was trained with the military, in the field of radar, and he was involved in several incidents where he was based at a particular Royal Air Force base on the south coast of England, and he was involved in several incidents where strange, fast-moving objects were tracked on the radar scopes flying towards the English coast from the direction of Scandinavia. And this was still the Cold War going on at the time. And the first thought was, it's got to be the Russians launching some sort of sneak missile attack. And aircraft were quickly sent up from a nearby Air Force base. The pilots couldn't even get close to these things. They were flying at tremendous speeds and altitudes. And whatever the objects were, they played kind of like a game of cat and mouse with the air crews, to the point where the pilots literally had to return back to base because they were running low on fuel. This occurred over the course of about 3 or 4 nights. And when, after the final night, these things didn't return, everybody who was involved in the incident in some fashion, whether the radar people, ground crew, pilots, they were all reminded of the fact that they'd signed the military's secrecy oaths and, you won't talk about it to your family, friends, and to the press. And my dad didn't tell me till I was about 14, something like that. And so that got me interested, not because it was my own dad, but also because he had a background in the military. He was trained to recognize what can be picked up on radar and how to interpret it. And when I finished school,